Sunday, May 13th, 2018. I'm an Echo 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I want to talk about gold. Of course, I talk a lot about gold, precious metals, but today I want to explain why gold is such a threat and why the globalists and the banking elite are so against it. And they don't only manipulate the price, but they kind of brainwash people. And by that I mean mainstream media, FT, Wall Street Journal, CNBC. They do talk about gold, but they always disparage it. And I'll look at an editorial in the FT that, and I remember very well that day. It was, to me, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And remember to this day, I was waiting for the train in the morning to go to work in the city. My train came around just after 6 a.m. Used to get to work. The markets, futures markets open at 7 a.m. So we needed to be in the office just before 7 to get prepared, see what happened in Asia, see what the markets were doing. So I used to buy the FT at the time. This was 2004. So I started reading it, and I was on the platform, and I turned to the editorial page because I like reading the editorials in newspapers, or used to like, because I don't really buy the newspapers anymore. And then I saw this editorial, going gold. The pointlessness of holding bullion continues to sink in. So this was an FT editorial. I cut it out actually from the paper. I've scanned it here, and I even wrote down FT editorial, April 16th, 2004. Price of gold at the time was just around $400, $400.65. I think that I took the fixing, the PM fixing. So what did the FT say about gold? So they said going gold. The pointlessness of holding bullion continues to sink in. So I guess the Chinese, the Russians, and other countries are not listening to the FT. So it goes on to say, the barbarous relic, as Keynes called it, is crumbling to dust. So first of all, Keynes didn't call gold a barbarous relic. He called the gold standard that they were under a barbarous relic. But it wasn't gold's fault. It was the way they drew up the system. And then it says, when even the venerable N.M. Rothschild has quit the gold market, and the Bank of France, among the most stubborn of the official gold bugs, is thinking again about its bullion holdings, the end of gold as an investment has come a little closer. So I remember that the Rothschilds, they exited the fixing in London. They stopped dealing in bullion. But believe me, I knew a guy who worked in the city, and he was a fund manager, and I used to play golf with him, and he was invited by some fund managers who had gold with the Rothschilds to go and visit their gold holdings at the Rothschild vaults. And this was after this, so believe me, they still have a lot of gold, probably. My friend said the vault had a lot of gold, and they said it was all for clients, but who knows? But it goes on to say, it will not be before time. Fetishization of shiny yellow metal decades after it ceased to be used as an anchor of international monetary system is a lingering anomaly in modern financial markets. Perhaps Rothschild's last service to the bullion market could be to keep a live gold tender on display behind glass as a reminder of a bygone age, like the former coal miners who now make a living giving tours of defunct pits. So there you have the FT totally disparaging gold in 2004, 4 years before it zoomed up to $1,000 and 7 years before it went to almost 2,000, and it was at 400 at the time. So I'm sure this put a lot of people off from reading it. So, and I'll keep going here now. It says the one advantage of gold as a reserve asset is that unlike assets based on fiat money, governments cannot make it worthless by inflating it away. Yeah, that's right, the FT. And it's gotten even worse. But in an era of low inflation, and given that independent inflation targeting central banks are the norm across industrialized world, that risk has very sharply diminished. Rubbish. We had the 4 years later, after this editorial, we had the biggest economic financial collapse in many years. It almost brought the whole system down. So yeah, so much for central banking policy and like credibility. Indeed, for both private and official investors, gold is now a rather risky asset with a nil or low return. Well, nowadays we get negative interest rates for bonds, government bonds. We get real negative rates in the UK. We got rates at 0.5% and inflation's at 3 and 4%. So actually the FT, more rubbish and more, I would say it's fake news. That's why I've been a contrarian for many years, because I kind of see these things. So it says the intrinsic value of gold determined by its use in various industrial processes is well below its market price. Gold does not grow, so its value to any one investor as an asset is dependent on other investors also holding it as an investment asset. The gold price hangs precariously by its own bootstraps. So how many people did they, by writing this, the FT, which is a respected financial newspapers of Wall Street, City of London, in Europe. I mean, there's an FT Deutschland, Asia as well. They probably read the FT. They need to stop reading this rubbish paper. But anyway, let's see what they say towards the end. I won't go further into it, but it says, given the pointlessness of holding gold, the speed of its official sell-off scarcely matters, unless leaching the gold into the market bit by bit somehow maximizes the return to the public purse by limiting the impact on the price. That would imply some irrationality on the part of the market, but then holding gold is irrational in the first place. Perhaps the central banks are right to go slowly. So this is a publication, if you read here in Wikipedia about the FT, and it says here, editorial stance. The FT advocates free markets and is in favor of globalization. So here's a publication that supposedly advocates free markets, but doesn't advocate free market money, which we all know is gold and silver and has been for thousands of years. They advocate fiat money. So how can they advocate free markets? That's complete garbage. So, and they go on to say, the end of this editorial, whatever the speed, the direction is clear. Gold is on its way out as an investment and a reserve asset. 3 cheers for that. Well, the FT, I'm sorry, but you guys completely wrong, whichever editor wrote this. So yeah, so as you see, it's not only the manipulation of the gold price, but it's also the managing people's perception. And the FT is a huge part of this globalist agenda. They're like the mouthpiece, international mouthpiece of this agenda. So with that in mind as well, I want to recommend a book that I read about 15, 16 years ago, just when I started looking into gold, investing in gold. And I bought this book actually in Switzerland. I went to visit family there, and this is the book, Gold Wars. The Battle Against Sound Money as Seen from a Swiss Perspective by Ferdinand Lips. This is a really good book, and I probably need to read it again. I've read it a couple of times, but it's been a while. And Ferdinand Lips, he died a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe less, I'm not sure. But he was actually an insider. I'll read a little bit about Ferdinand Lips here. Born in Switzerland in 1931, Ferdinand Lips is a well-established and respected authority on gold and the gold market. His roots are in banking, where he started his career and became a co-founder and the managing director of Rothschild Bank AG in Zurich, Switzerland. In 1987, he opened his own bank, Bank Lips AG, also in Zurich. He retired in 1998 when he sold his equity interest in the bank. Not being one to sit around idly, Mr. Lips continues to be very active in the banking, gold, and financial fields. He's on the board of various companies, among them African gold mining companies. He's also trustee of the Foundation for the Advancement of Monetary Education in New York, FAME. They published this book, FAME. Gold Wars is his third book and expresses his view on gold and the gold standard and the gold exchange standard, as well as the various attempts to manipulate gold and eventually push it aside. As a Swiss, he dedicates an important part of the book to the events leading up to the partial but substantial sale of Swiss gold reserves. So yeah, the Swiss, like the British, sold a lot of their gold. What have people said about this book? So we've got Professor Dr. T. Abt, Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Switzerland. It is the great merit of this provocative book by Ferdinand Lips to bring back a wider understanding of why gold was a solid base for economic stability in many societies, and should still be, I would argue. So who else? Dr. Mark Bristow, PhD, Chief Executive Officer, Randgold Resources. Gold and freedom are inseparable. This is the thesis of Gold Wars, a manuscript that I recommend every modern day business person should read. Another comment here by Dr. Lawrence Sparks, PhD, Executive Director of FAME, or in New York, the Foundation for the Advancement of Monetary Education, says Gold Wars is essential reading for anyone who is concerned about his financial future. And this one here is from Harry Schultz. Harry Schultz passed away. He was a really famous, market letter writer. He was had a big following. Harry Schultz, International Harry Schultz Letter. What does he say about the book? Mr. Lips makes the history of gold come alive and will enthuse you to join the war for the sake of freedom, free markets, and social peace. You will want 50 copies for your best friends, press, and politicians. So there you go. You've got the FT, which is considered free market, and they're bashing gold. There you go. Highly recommend this book. I'll put a link to it below in the description, Amazon link. You probably might be able to find a free PDF as well if you don't want to buy it. Yeah, so why is gold so important? Well, because they need to control the price, because gold and silver are like barometers of the monetary system. If their prices are out of control to the upside, of course, that it's kind of in the human DNA. People will see that as a bad sign, and it is a bad sign, because it has been money for thousands of years, gold and silver. So do I think they can keep it down and they can keep it away from the system? No, I don't. The FT was wrong in 2004. Milton Friedman, he was wrong as well. He said in 1971, when the U.S. closed the gold window and we went on a floating exchange rate system, fiat money, he said that the gold price would go almost to zero because it was demonetized. So Milton Friedman has been wrong. The FT has been wrong. And the mainstream and the anti-gold bugs are going to be wrong again. I know we've been waiting for a long time, but I believe in this. I think it's common sense, and it's a law. It's like a natural economic law. You can't print money like they've done out of thin air without any consequence. I think Bernanke said in 2002 they have a printing press and they can print money at no cost. But I think it's Jesse Felder said in an interview, we've never seen all this money printing of a reserve currency and the whole world doing it together. We don't know how. I don't think there's any way out for them to get out of it, and that's why it's so important for people to hold on to their physical gold and silver. And so I hope you enjoyed this weekend video. If you did, please like, share it, share my video far and wide. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and you can also follow me on Steemit, DTube, and on Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.